Hey guys, I'm John Barklow, and today I want to talk to you about some high altitude considerations. So high altitude, it can't be smelled, it can't be tasted, and it can't be seen, but it can be felt, and it can shut down your trip or your hunt quicker than anything. Now, we're going to consider high altitude anything over, say, 8,000 feet. So anytime you're going above 8,000 feet, especially if you're coming from lower elevations, say back east or towards one of the coasts, you need to factor in the altitude that you're going to hunt at into your hunt planning. Now, if you don't do this, it can shut you down and ruin your trip, and it can actually cost you your life. Now, everyone's going to be affected a little different from altitude, and actually you can even be affected differently from trip to trip. Now, personally for me, I tend to do very well no matter the altitude I'm living, up to about 10 or even 11,000 feet. Anything above that, I start to feel it, and I need to slow my pace down a little bit more. I need to hydrate a little bit more. But everyone's going to be affected a little different. And these are things that you need to kind of figure out. And so if it's the first time going to altitude, you really should err on the side of caution. Now, high altitude is not just going to affect, say, the slower person or the person that's maybe out of shape. In some regard, it's actually a benefit to those people because they are going to move slower, they are going to pace themselves. Where I've seen high altitude really hurt people is the young and the fit. The person that is going to go out there and say, well, I crush on my workouts in the gym. I can run 6-minute miles. I can hike with a 60-pound pack. So they expect to take those results that they have at those lower altitudes and expect to perform the same at high altitude. And it just doesn't work that way. And so you're going to have to really go by what your body's saying to you. And also if you're with a partner, with your partner. So if your partner's not feeling good that day, you need to slow down. If you're not feeling good that day, then the group needs to slow down. Now, one of the things that I found that does the best to give you the best fighting chance is to hydrate well. So staying hydrated is going to keep your blood flowing. It's not going to sludge so much. And so that blood flowing through your body is going to deliver that oxygen, which is in a shorter supply, the higher you go, to really feed yourself, right? So the mantra is that you want to climb high and sleep low. So this is kind of the old adage from the mountaineers. And what that really means is, say I'm going to fly from Ohio, where I grew up, and I'm going to fly to Denver, Colorado at 5,000 feet. We're going to jump in the truck. We're going to drive the trailhead at 8,000 feet. We want to spend the night at 8,000 feet. We want to chill out. We want to hydrate. We just want to relax at 8,000 feet. Then the next day, we can start to maybe hunt or even hike in a little bit, but we don't want to go and sleep any higher than 1,500 feet than where we started. So if we started at 8,000, we spent the night, we can go and hike and climb and hunt, but we don't want to sleep any higher than, say, about 9,500 feet. And so if you repeat this, spend 24 hours in an elevation, sleep at that elevation, climb an additional 1,500 feet, this is going to allow you to properly acclimatize. Now, again, if you live at some altitude, that's going to be a little different. Maybe you just do better at altitude. You know this so that you can plan that into your hunt. But if you don't have the amount of hunting days or vacation days to plan your hunt to, say, go to a high altitude mule deer hunt in Colorado at 13,000 feet, if you don't have the number of days to properly acclimatize and you can't factor that in, you either need to try to save up some more vacation days or maybe choose a lower elevation hunt area to go hunt your mule deer. You cannot fight elevation. I have had 3 times where I've seen high altitude really crush big, strong guys. All 3 times I've had to shepherd those people out of the mountains. One time on Mount Whitney, I think my buddy was suffering from cerebral edema, and it was really bad. He couldn't keep anything down. He kept vomiting. He was really incoherent. High altitude can have a very, very negative effect on your health. So What are we looking at? So the first one is what's called AMS, acute mountain sickness. So acute mountain sickness is kind of just where you feel a little tired, you have a headache, you're thirsty, of course, you should hydrate a little bit. A lot of times when you lay down to go to sleep, you can actually feel, or it feels like your heart's beating in your ears. So I tend to experience this when I'm above 12 or 13,000 feet, when I'm still acclimatizing, and you lay there, you're kind of restless, you're not going to get a good night's sleep. That normally is going to clear up maybe by the next day, certainly within 24 hours again. If you kind of slow your pace, you hydrate, and you just kind of manage your health. But if you don't, that can quickly develop into 2 additional high altitude medical issues that can be life-threatening. One is high altitude pulmonary edema. That's going to affect your lungs. So you could still have all the symptoms of acute mountain sickness, but now all of a sudden you're starting to have a hard time breathing. You could maybe even hear some gurgling or rattling in your lungs. You may even start to cough up a little bit of blood. And so that is starting to affect your lungs. That is a life-threatening or potentially life-threatening condition because you're not going to be able to breathe. The other is high altitude cerebral edema. And so that's going to affect our head. And so you can have those same symptoms of acute mountain sickness, but now all of a sudden you start to feel confused. You start to feel faint. Your coordination is off. You may, lapse into a coma when it becomes really bad. This can kill you because you're going to have increased pressure in your brain and you're going to have neurological effects. So what do we do with any of these if we start to get concerned? The first thing we should do, especially if you are ambulatory, i.e. you can move, is you want to drop elevation, and you want to drop as much elevation as possible until you start to feel better. So as an example, my friend on Mount Whitney, we dropped 5,000 feet and he was still not feeling better. We got in the car, we dropped an additional, I think, 5,000 feet. It was a lot down to the desert floor, and it still took him several hours until he felt better. But that's the immediate thing you have to do, is lower the elevation. And then if you are suffering from either pulmonary or cerebral edema, you have to get that person to a higher medical care. You have to get them to a doctor to get evaluated. I had a friend a couple years ago, he went to Colorado. We had talked about some symptoms of high altitude. He actually started to get them. He was smart enough. He left, got down out of the mountains with a buddy. He went to the hospital. They actually held him overnight. So this can be a really big issue. Now, you can take some medications if you get them prescribed from a doctor to kind of help prevent, so as a preventative before you go to elevation. But again, the best thing to do is be aware of it, understand the signs and symptoms, manage your health, manage your pace, manage your hydration. And I think if you do that, you're going to have a much safer time when you go on that high altitude mule deer hunt.